Hello, and welcome to Movies I've Seen, the podcast where batteries are included. That's a joke about Chucky. Okay, so actually, I split up what was going to be a really long episode into 2 shorter episodes. So this is the episode about Child's Play. Sam and I really loved it. We talk about the whole thing. It's majorly full of spoilers, so I recommend watching it first. I mean, I know everybody knows that Chucky's the doll who's alive, so, it's not, people don't know what's going on. But you'll listen. You'll figure it out. Sam, thanks for talking about Child's Play with me.
It's no problem at all. I love Child's Play.
Me too. Wow. What a criminally underrated movie.
It really is, isn't it? It gets lost in the
oeuvre of Chucky.
And, it's one of the best of the entire series, honestly.
It's the only one I gave a 10 out of 10 to. I gave it a perfect score. Child's Play is, in my opinion, a perfect horror movie. And I said perfect because I have no complaint. Not one. I will say the plot of Child's Play, even though it's fairly well known that it's Chucky's movie, and maybe people think the movie is called Chucky, but it's not. It's called Child's Play.
Yeah.
So there's a synopsis where a boy named Andy receives a toy for his birthday, and it turns out the toy is alive, and it's a struggle for Andy and his mom to survive this. But this is a movie where I want to go through the plot point by point as it goes through the movie.
Yeah, because it has a plot, and there is a mystery element to it, kind of. We know what's going on in the movie, but the characters do not. So we're watching them try to figure out what's going on and figure out what they can do about it. And then more things are revealed to us along the way.
It's really engaging, and this is how I want to talk about it. I want to go point by point because I love so many different parts of this movie. Okay, the movie starts out, hits the ground running. There's a chase scene with crime in Chicago in winter, and a crazy man with long hair, played by Brad Dourif, is running through the streets in a big winter coat.
Yeah.
And he's being chased by a cop who's played by Prince Humperdinck. I know his name's Chris Sarandon.
I thought he was getting chased by Jerry from Fright Night. Jerry Dandridge.
Jerry Dandridge. Famous vampire. Vampire named Jerry, right. Okay, so Brad Dourif is playing a character named Charles Lee Ray, and he is wanted for multiple murders, and he is on the run.
He is the Lakeshore Strangler in Chicago, Illinois.
Yes. Wow, what an accent. And he is coming around the bend, and he gets shot, and so he slows down, and it means the cops are catching up to him. His driver takes off in the van and abandons him.
Yeah.
And
Eddie Caputo.
And the detective
sends his partner in the car to go chase after him.
Yeah.
And he chases after Charles Lee Ray. He gets shot in the leg initially, and so he breaks into a toy store to try to get away. And then in the toy store, there's a cat and mouse game going on, and then the detective shoots him in the chest and gets him good. And he's like, oh my god, I'm dying.
He's about to die.
I gotta find somebody. And then...
he doesn't say I have to find somebody.
Yeah, he does.
What?
I gotta find... Because he's saying, I gotta find a person to put my soul into. And he can't make it because he's dying. So then he
can't
grabs
get that
the doll.
So he grabs a doll, which looks like a person, and it's a good guy doll. And there's a huge display of them, and they're very popular.
It's the hot new toy.
And it's wintertime, so I assume
Christmas is coming.
Is afoot.
Yeah.
And
it's not a Christmas movie. There is no Christmas imagery in this movie. It's just wintertime. In Chicago, it could be close to Halloween, Thanksgiving,
because
whatever.
It gets cold so fast up there. Well, it used to. Anyway, so inside the movie, it's not ambiguous at all. Charles Lee Ray conducts a voodoo spell with chanting. He summons powers.
Yeah.
The clouds align over the store. Lightning happens.
A bolt of lightning comes and strikes the store and blows Detective Humperdinck across the room.
It blows out the windows, right?
Yeah. It explodes the whole front of the store.
Yeah.
And the detective's like, what the fuck?
And that's obviously magic.
Yeah.
We know what's happened. And the doll is there.
And Ray is dead when they find him.
And it comes on the news, and the cut, I guess, is to the news on the TV in an apartment, in a nice, well-lit apartment, starring Catherine Hicks as a young mom, a young single mom, and
Alex Vincent.
Alex Vincent as Andy.
There are some fantastic Chicago accents in this movie, by the way.
Andy
Just gonna say.
Barkley. Yeah, okay. So,
Andy Barkley.
Andy Barkley. Okay, so in the well-lit apartment, it's very nice, and Andy is super cute, and he's making breakfast for his mom, and he's making really burnt toast with a whole tub of butter on top, and cereal that spills everywhere, and orange juice, and he brings it to her on a tray, and he's 6 years old. He's a small 6, and he's incredibly cute, and
he's the good guy commercial on TV, and he's like...
He grins and looks sideways and gets excited.
Yeah.
And the Good Guy commercial tells us that the dolls are brand new.
Yeah.
That the Good Guy TV show has been going on, and Andy's a fan of it because he's wearing Good Guy pajamas.
Yeah.
And he sees some birthday presents that are already wrapped by the bay window, and one of them is a big, long present.
It looks like the shape of the boxes we saw in the toy store. So Andy's like...
And he goes and wakes up his mom, and it's 6:30 in the morning. And she's like, it's too early. And he's like, but it's so beautiful outside. And he's so cute. And he's the cutest kid ever.
You watch it happen to her, too. What's happening to us already, it happens to her as soon as he says that. She's like, it sure is.
And so
it's a great moment in any movie. It's got this lady who's doing this great performance, it's this kid who's doing a great performance, and it just establishes the dynamic of their relationship and how wonderful it is for them to have each other in their lives. And
they have a little bit of a partnership dynamic because it's just the two of them. But she is a good mom, and she cares for him, and he's a really cute son who looks up to her.
Yeah.
And it's really great. And it's his birthday, and he gets to open his presents, and the big present is clothes. Boo.
Yeah.
It's those slacks.
She does get him some toys.
Yeah, he gets a Good Guy tool set.
Yeah.
And
he's like, but I want a good guy to go with it.
Yeah. But he doesn't say that on his own. He just kind of looks disappointed.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm sorry.
You want some toys, don't you? Not boring old clothes. And he's like, yeah. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't know about it in time to save. So...
It's not clear that 6-year-old Andy has an understanding of what that means, but it's implied that she has said that before.
Yeah, and he seems to accept that answer. It's not like he's like, but why?
Right, no.
Just go get more money. It tells us so much about their lives.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
It tells us that she's on a tight budget and that she's trying to be honest with him about everything. So he goes to school.
It's rare to see in movies, which is why I really like that element. It's uncommon.
Yes. So Andy goes to school, and his mom, Karen, goes to work, and she works in a department store, and she has a good friend at work who comes up to her, and she says, yo, you want... Maggie. And she says, did you want one of those Good Guy dolls still? And Karen says, yeah, of course I do. Where are they? And Maggie says, there's a guy in the back alley behind the store, because it's a department store downtown, selling one. And she's like, oh, okay, watch my counter. I'm going. Oh, they go down together.
Yeah, she can't watch the counter. She's like, come on.
They just leave the counter and go down to the back alley, and Karen buys a banged up looking Good Guy box
from
the peddler.
Half the price.
Yes. Maggie's trying to haggle, and Karen's like, no, I'll just pay it. It's fine. Gets the doll and goes inside.
Like, hey, I dated that guy, I think. Maggie's a delight also.
Yeah.
She's a good friend.
She is a good friend. Karen gets the doll. They both go inside. Karen gets chastised by her retail manager boss for leaving. And then she is told that she has to stay and work late. And she says, it's my son's birthday. And Maggie says, I'll work for her. And the manager says, Maggie, you can't. You're not qualified. Karen, I need you to. And Maggie says, okay, I'll take care of Andy. I know you have to work, but I'll have a good time with him. I'll make him dinner and cake, and it'll be fun.
It'll be the hottest date I've had in weeks.
Karen picks Andy up from school.
Yeah, she goes home between... He says you can go home between your shift, but you'll have to be back here by 8 o'clock or whatever.
Yes.
So she goes home and tricks Andy into thinking that the package is full of groceries, and she's like, this ain't groceries. And then it's a good guy doll.
It's a good guy doll. Andy jumps up and down, and like on the TV commercial, he just starts addressing the doll, because that's how it happens on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Hi, I'm Andy. What's your name?" And the doll says,
"Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
and
I'm your friend to the end. Heidi ho! Ha ha ha!"
And it's Charles Lee Ray.
But we don't know that. It's the regular voice. It just says its name is Chucky.
But we know.
But well, we don't know actually, because they don't really say Charles Lee Ray's name at that point.
But we've seen the trailers.
I mean,
We know what movie we're watching.
we do. But like back then, if you're just watching this movie going in cold for the first time, you're like, that scene at the beginning was weird. Something's up with the doll. What is it? Did he make the doll alive? Did he make the doll evil? What's going on? So yeah, there's no indication right away that something's up with Chucky.
It happens pretty quickly. I mean, the next scene, we see the doll moving on its own. And
It looks at the TV when it mentions Eddie Caputo has escaped from custody.
Right. When Maggie is cleaning up after dinner for her and Andy.
She gets some of his birthday cake.
I just want to point out from the get-go, the special effects of the doll they're phenomenal.
Yeah, they really are.
They're totally flawless. I defy anyone to point out a flaw in the doll effects in Child's Play.
Yeah, no, there really isn't any. And they make Chucky do a lot in the movie. And it's a very low-budget movie, but they make him do so much with what they've got. And they use a combination of animatronics for the doll, and they also use... there's a couple parts where they use, like, stop motion. And most of it is either animatronics or a little person dressed up as Chucky, which they were smart, and they made the doll big enough to
sort of accommodate that,
pretty close. Like, they didn't have to, like, build sets that are the right size or anything.
And so that's one cute thing, is that Andy is the same size as the toy, and he's carrying it around, and they're both wearing matching outfits, and it's really cute.
Yeah, but also it's a plot point, too. Because, continue with the plot. I'll say it when it comes up.
Well, immediately after Maggie puts Andy to bed with Chucky, Chucky gets up and murders Aunt Maggie.
Yeah. We don't see it. We just, she
that's
gets spooked by something.
That's one of the cool ways that the movie, like, does the special effects.
Yeah.
Is it shows footprints, like, low POV shots.
Yeah.
It does a lot.
Yeah, and he kills her because she didn't want to let him watch the news.
Yes. Egregious.
Chucky, man. You gotta knock it off.
He's evil.
Yeah.
But in his murder, he leaves tiny doll-sized footprints on the counter.
Kid-sized footprints.
Well...
Because it's the same size... He has the same size feet as Andy.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. And so the detectives show up, and they get Karen... they call her home from work. And...
No, she was just coming home like normal.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She just sees the crowd outside, and she's like, what is going on? Yeah, and then she comes in, and they're like, your friend, she had an accident. She fell out the window. She's dead. And then the detective is the same detective that got Charles Lee Ray. And he's like, hey, I noticed these footprints up on the counter. Do you recognize this? And she's like, no. And he's like, they kind of look like pretty small footprints there. And she's like, what are you implying? He's like, that's all right. I already checked Andy's shoes. None of them match. But then he notices that Andy's wearing shoes right now. He's like,
what's pajama shoes?
Yeah, it's pajama shoes. And they have the same print, which is a very distinctive pattern. It's got like a cowboy hat and a gun and a firefighter helmet on his thing. Something like that. It's very distinctive.
Yes.
So he makes that connection, and
he's suspicious of Andy.
Karen shuts that down immediately. She's like, nope. We're done. My friend's dead. Please leave. I have to put my son to bed.
Stop interrogating my 6-year-old.
Right. So then, and he's like, yeah, why would Andy be up on the counter anyway? He's not, like, being a dick either.
No,
he notices a connection, and he's like, yeah, there's a connection here, but, like, it's clear that something's off about it to him. It doesn't make sense to him.
It looks like his instincts are triggered, and I think this is a credit to Chris Sarandon as an actor.
Yeah.
He's incredibly talented, and it appears as though his instincts are triggered, but he's not directly suspicious of Andy.
No, he's not like, that kid's a murderer.
Because Andy is, like, pure sunshine.
Yeah.
And then sweet as pie.
And then as Karen's ushering him out the door, Andy notices, I guess it's flour? Yeah, because Chucky knocked over flour on the counter, and that's what left the footprints in on the counter. Andy notices flour on Chucky's shoes, and Chucky's shoes are the same as his. And so he, trying to be helpful, runs back out. He's like, hey, I know who was on the counter. And the detective's like, who? And he goes, Chucky, you doll. Yeah. So he finds the little hammer from the tool set that Andy got for his birthday. And
they bag it as the murder weapon.
Yeah. His partner is even like, really? This? And he's like, just check it. Something's weird. Yeah. So
it's upsetting, and also it's very sad for Andy and Karen that they lost their Aunt Maggie.
Yeah.
And the plot just keeps chugging right along. The next day, Karen walks him to school, and he walks right into school in his adorable matching jacket and pants, and then he turns around and walks right back out with Chucky in hand. He doesn't go to school. He gets on a city bus and travels to...
No, he gets on the L.
He gets on the L and travels to Southside Chicago and takes Chucky to Eddie Caputo's house and sits on a lawn chair outside while Chucky goes inside and terrorizes and murders Eddie Caputo in about 15 minutes and blows
the house up with the gas stove. Yeah.
It is scary. It is effective. And you're so worried for Andy the whole time. And then the cops pick him up outside of Eddie Caputo's house.
Yep.
And I don't know how he gets back to Chris Sarandon, but he does.
Well, I think that somebody was like, hey, we just picked up that kid. And then Chris Sarandon was like, hey, I mean, they take him to the same precinct, obviously. And then it doesn't matter. Somehow, Chris Sarandon's like,
what are you doing?
What's going on? Now Eddie Caputo's dead and you're here. And then his partner is like kind of interrogating him, but like just talking to him while they have the tape recorder. He's questioning him, yeah. But
he kind of shouldn't be because
he's a child.
Right.
But they do reveal later that the psychiatrist is there the whole time, so I guess they're like, I don't know, they shouldn't be talking to him.
Right.
But Karen shows up and he's like, listen, Miss Barkley, something weird is going on. We have Andy, and he's claiming the doll is alive. And then Andy says it again. Basically, he says that Chucky's alive, and he says, he told me never to tell anyone that he was alive or he'd kill me. And he's like, Chucky, say something or they're going to take me away from my mom. And he gets mad at Chucky. That's where you see the moment of betrayal. He's like, you lied to me. And
I know. It's so tough. And it's really scary because the psychiatrist says to Karen, like, we're going to take your son away from you because it doesn't appear that he can be safe with you.
Yeah. They do that thing where they say, like, maybe Andy should come stay with us for a couple of days. So they're not, like, taking him away yet, but it's going in that direction.
Yes.
So they do. They take Andy and they put him in this thing.
It's a psych hospital.
Yeah.
And it looks like shit because it's the 1980s Chicago.
Yep.
And it looks like the worst orphanage you could imagine.
Yeah.
But a mental hospital.
What? They threw green paint up on the walls. What do you want?
You can see the plaster peeling under the 10-year-old paint. Yeah. And the atmosphere of the movie is so, like, dry and matter of fact.
Yeah.
It really doesn't match with a haunted doll plot.
No, it's kind of the same aesthetic as Candyman because it's the same location, generally the same time period, and
well, Candyman does a lot more magical stuff inside of it.
There's a fair bit of magic in Child's Play also.
I think the tone of Child's Play is very realistic.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the tone is much more grounded in Child's. Yeah, there's a lot more reality bending going on in Candyman. I was just talking about like visual aesthetic. Yeah, the setting and the locations.
It's the same time and place. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
but yeah, that's seeing the hospital, seeing the police station, seeing Eddie Caputo's house and the burned out houses around.
And Karen's apartment.
The empty yard, Karen's apartment. All of it just feels very real.
Yeah.
And it feels very normal that people would say, what do you mean the doll is getting up and moving? But like we as the audience can see the doll getting up and moving and stabbing.
Up until that point in the movie, they haven't directly shown it. We've seen the feet. We've seen him like run by in the background. We've seen his hand. Little things.
Like it's very obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't actually see it happen on screen until a very crucial point in the movie, which is where we're at right now, actually. Because Karen takes the doll home with her, and she's depressed and desperately worried about Andy and wondering if she's going to get him back again. And then she just is like, she's just got the doll, and she's just like kind of lonely and losing it, and she's like, talk to me, like fucking say something.
Because on some level she believes Andy, because
she wants to
has
so
never
bad.
lied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the doll does its, hi, I'm Chucky. Want to play? And she's just like, oh God, I'm losing it. So she goes to throw the good guy doll box away.
She goes into the kitchen, she picks up the empty box to throw it in the garbage, and the batteries fall out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And I get goosebumps every time because it's so good.
Yep.
And
then she's like, that thing just fucking talked like 2 seconds ago. It's been talking this whole time.
And Chucky in the next room heard the batteries drop.
Yup.
He knows the jig is up, and
But he plays possum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until she comes back over and confronts him.
No, she like looks in the thing, and then his head spins around, and he says, I'm Chucky, wanna play? And then she's like, what the? And she drops him under the sofa, and she pulls him out, and he's still fucking with her. The little bastard, he's still fucking with her.
Because he's evil.
Yeah. And she's like, say something again, and he won't. And then she lights a fire in the fireplace. Says, you talk or I'm going to throw you into the fire. And that's when we see him move for the first time. His face like immediately turns and he's like, you stupid. And he like attacks her and starts cussing at her.
He bites her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she has a little struggle with him. And then he gets up and he runs out of the apartment. And she loses him. And there goes the proof.
Yes. So
it's such a good scene.
It's so good. And it's just the two of them. It's really good.
Yeah.
Catherine Hicks does a great job.
She really does. She really does. I hope she's in the new show.
I hope so too.
They got everybody else back. They might as well get her. She seems like she's like into being a part of this and stuff like that. She was at a con with Alex Vincent recently.
Oh yeah, she was.
Yeah.
And so Chucky has a destination. He's going to see his old mentor / voodoo priest,
John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is just a voodoo priest living.
Oh no, that's not where he's going yet. Because he made 2 declarations before he died. He says, I'm gonna get you and I'm gonna get Eddie, no matter what. He said, remember he was yelling at the detective? He's like, I'm gonna get you for this, and I'm gonna get Eddie too.
Oh yeah.
And he got Eddie, so there's one more person he needs to kill, the detective.
Well, that's where Karen goes. Karen goes downtown to find the detective and confront him. And she's like, Chucky's alive.
Yeah.
And Detective
like,
Humperdinck is like...
she shows him her bite wound, and he's like, he thinks she's losing it too, but he's like, listen, Mrs. Barkley, I hate what happened in there. That I didn't want that to happen. But lying is not going to help at all. Please go home and get some sleep. We'll figure something out. And she's like, fine. I'll do it myself. And he's like, where are you going? And she's like, to find Chucky. And he's like, you don't want to go to that part of town? Because she says, I'm going to go to the peddler I bought it from.
Right.
He's like, it's the bad part of town this time of night. And he's clearly going to go after her.
Yeah, she finds the peddler, goes down to like a homeless encampment, and...
she just goes all over that part of town asking all the homeless people, like, do you know this guy with the cart? Like...
And she finds him, and... she only has $12 to offer him because she's poor. And then they threaten her with violence.
He straight up tries to rape her.
Well, I mean, like, people are, like, crowding around her. They're
all gonna rape her.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's pretty blatant. Like, she's like, that's all I've got. He goes, that's not all you got. And he, like, pushes her out onto a car nearby.
I hate it.
Yeah. Thank God, Detective Jerry Dandridge shows up.
Yeah, the detective shows up, and he
scares off all the homeless people and punches the bum that was gonna rape her. And then he's like, you gonna answer the lady's questions now?
And the bum says he got the doll from the blown out toy store that the detective...
Over on Wabash.
Yeah, the detective killed Charles Lee Ray in.
Yeah, and he's like, huh. And she's like, what? And he's like, nothing. And she's like, it's something. I saw your face. And he's like, it's just... there's nothing there, okay? I know. And she's like, how do you know? And he's like, I already checked the place out. And she's like, why? And he's like, because that's where Charles Lee Ray was the night he died. And it's worth mentioning, Andy has said the name Charles Lee Ray up at this point.
Yes.
And there's already a connection because of Eddie Caputo. So him mentioning that location, he's like, you can see the wheels in his head turning. And he reveals to Karen that I was the man who killed him. And she's like, well, you said yourself, like, he wants vengeance. He already got Eddie Caputo. He's going to come after you now. And he's like, Mrs. Sparkley, enough. And so he's reached his limit. He takes her home, drops her off, and he's like, I'm going home.
But he doesn't go home.
Doesn't.
He goes to the police station.
Yeah.
And he pulls Chucky's file and looks at his address and all of his information, and he takes the file in his car to drive home, I guess.
Oh, he had mentioned to Karen where Charles Lee Ray lived, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in his car, Chucky is lying in wait.
Yep.
With a knife.
Well, he tries to strangle him with the jumper cables first. And then there's a scene, because he's driving, and he tries to strangle him, and then he's like, whoa, and he can't stop the car because he's pulled back too far, and the car's just, like, going, on its own. Not on its own, but, like, it's on cruise or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, like, smashing into stuff, and he, like, throws Chucky on the floor, and then Chucky's, he tries to stop the car, and then Chucky starts stabbing up through the seat with a knife so he can't hit the brakes, and he's still swerving around, and then Chucky, like, pushes the gas pedal to make the car go faster, and the car crashes.
It's a great chaotic scene.
It really is.
It's
like,
really
you didn't
good.
expect a car chase in this.
Right. And at that point, I'm kind of like, how strong is Chucky? Does he have the strength of a doll or a man or a doll and a man combined?
It seems like he has
to be a man.
It seems like he has the full strength that he had when he was a human. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. It's scary. Like, people like to dismiss Chucky. They're like, well, just kick him. Like, well, you don't fucking see him coming. That's the whole point.
And also, he's got a knife.
Yep. He's going to stab you if you kick him.
He sure will.
Yep.
So, the detective survives the encounter.
Yeah.
Gets out of the car before it catches on fire, which cars...
Well, he also shoots Chucky. He burns his face with the car lighter, and then he manages to shoot Chucky, and it hurts him.
Blood.
Yeah.
And Chucky, that's when he gets upset. And he's like, I can't believe I'm bleeding. I thought I had it good being a doll. And that's when he goes to see
John.
his old priest.
His voodoo practitioner mentor.
John.
Yeah. And then, meanwhile...
Next day, Karen goes to Charles Lee Ray's house.
And she sees that big painting on the wall.
There's a lot of disturbing artwork.
Yep.
It's not good.
It's been established at this point in the movie that Charles Lee Ray was a serial killer and he murdered women. Like, he's the Lakeshore Strangler. He strangled women. And you see this, like, portrait that he did on the walls of his apartment, and it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the detective shows up, and he's like, maybe I believe you.
And so they go to see the...
Well, he says, I pulled Charles Lee Ray's file. People called him Chucky. And he spent a lot of time with this man. And it's the voodoo priest guy. And then we cut right from that photo to the guy. And who should show up to visit him?
It's Chucky.
Yeah.
And
he's like, what do you think?
Yeah. And he's like, can you help me? I'm bleeding. And I thought I was cool in this immortal doll's body. And John says, it appears that you're turning human.
The more time you spend in that body, the more human it becomes. He's like, so if I don't get out of this body, I'm stuck in it? And he's like, yup.
He says, you have to...
No, he says, I won't help you. You're an abomination. You've perverted everything I taught you.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop you.
It appears that he did not know Chucky was a serial killer when he was mentoring him.
Yeah.
Which makes him maybe not a great mentor, but...
Well, I mean, people... serial killers are pretty good at deceiving people.
That's true. No shade to John then. I take it back. So
he tried to stop him. He runs into the room to call somebody. I don't know. He was going to call his voodoo posse or something. I don't know.
Chucky stops him, stabs him.
He gets his mojo doll, and he breaks his leg and tortures him into telling him what he needs to know. And
this is magic happening on screen.
Yep.
He's assaulting John with a voodoo doll, and it's working.
Yeah, because he's torturing him. He's like, tell me what I want to know. And he's like, breaks his leg. Tell me what I want to know. Breaks his arm. And then finally he says, okay. You have to transfer your soul out of the doll into the first living person that you revealed your true self to. So he's like, oh, you mean, well, I revealed myself to a 6-year-old kid. So is that what you mean? And he's like, I guess. He's like, I'm going to be a 6-year-old again. And then he murders John.
Yeah, it
stabs the doll, and John starts to die. And then he leaves. And then Karen and the detective show up as John's laying there dying. And then John manages to tell them, you got to shoot him in the heart. His heart's almost human. So if you shoot him in the heart, he'll die.
And then he dies.
And then he dies. So.
And Andy is all alone in this mental hospital in a room by himself, and he's staring out the window wistfully, and he sees across the courtyard coming up a stairway in an adjacent building, Chucky.
Yeah.
And he starts screaming, and I don't blame him.
Yeah.
He is clamoring at his locked door. He's saying, "Help, help, Chucky's coming to kill me." And
the doctor comes around. He's like, "What?" And Andy's like, "He's here. He's gonna kill me." He's like, "I don't see anyone, Andy. He's not here." And he's like, Andy "No, you idiot. Not in the room." But he doesn't say that because he's a little kid and he's panicking.
And he just curls up into a ball on the floor and just starts crying because he's scared and alone.
Yeah.
And this is the toughest part of the movie. Like, it's scary that Chucky's a killer, but also it's really scary that, like, Andy is alone and no one believes him, and we know he's right, and also he's in danger.
Yeah.
And Alex Vincent does such a good job.
He really does. He sells that shit.
Underrated child performance.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad he's finally getting his due now, because he's going to be I don't know if he's going to be the lead, but he's going to be a lead in the new show.
I'm glad. I'm excited about it.
Me too. I am.
We've met him a couple times at conventions, and he's always really nice and personable.
Yeah.
And there's a really cute picture of the two of us together.
There is.
So the doctors open the door.
No. Chucky he steals a key and opens the door and gets in. And then Andy tricks Chucky into thinking he's in the bed. Chucky goes to stab the pillows. Andy pops out, runs out, shuts the door.
Locks it.
And then
it's a chase through the shabby, populated mental hospital filled with children.
Yep, behind a locked gate, and they're just kind of wandering the halls, which is real, by the way. Like, people might not understand this, but like, it was a real problem, man. Like, they're just kind of like set loose in these hospitals back then.
Yeah.
The 80s was the tail end of it, but like, this was a real thing. That's like one of the nicer places.
Yes.
Yeah, that time period, 60s, 70s, and 80s were a horrible time for I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, yes, so the chase through the hospital.
So the chase through the hospital ensues, and Chucky corners Andy in like a surgical suite or ECT suite, electroconvulsive therapy.
Yep.
And
she's in a children's hospital.
I mean, it's a mental hospital with a children's ward, I think.
Yeah, but they're on the same floor. I'm not saying that's unrealistic. I'm just saying it's upsetting.
It is upsetting.
Yeah.
And Andy trips over a tray of tools, and he picks up a scalpel, and it's a great size weapon for him.
It is.
Because he's so little, and it's so sharp. And Chucky is taunting him, and then the doctor, the big white doctor, comes in, and he's like, "Oh, Andy, I'll give you a sedative." "No, don't. That's bad."
Yep.
And I guess Chucky doesn't want him to have the sedative either, because maybe it would interfere with the magic, because he stabs him.
I think he just wants an excuse to kill someone.
He's real murder happy.
Yeah, so he slices the doctor's Achilles tendon and then puts the shock headband on him and electrocutes him to death.
And Andy watches. Andy watches from the corner this man die.
And he's begging Chucky to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this tiny, sad little voice. And it's so compelling. The acting is the number one best thing about this movie.
Yeah.
Wait, the special effects is the best thing. Wait, they're both the best thing.
Yeah.
Can the special effects count as an actor? The special effects count as an actor.
Well, I would say that the puppeteers are giving an amazing performance as Chucky.
Yeah, they are.
And Brad Dourif's voice acting, we haven't mentioned it, by the way. Over the course of the whole movie, because he's turning human, the doll slowly is morphing between scenes to look like Brad Dourif.
It's fantastic.
His face becomes more expressive. His hairline changes to Brad Dourif's. Yeah.
His eyebrow arch changes.
Yep.
It's one of the best directorial decisions, for sure.
Yeah, and it's so subtle. Like, a lot of people probably don't notice it. Like, you notice that he looks more, like, alive later on, but, like, it's...
Like a great movie critic once said, you didn't notice it, but your brain did.
But your brain did. Yeah. It's great. It's fantastic. And then while the doctor is dying, Andy escapes And so Karen and the detective finally managed to get to the mental hospital because...
Thank God.
Yeah, because John had told them before he died, he mentioned also that Chucky's going to try to transfer his soul into the kid. So he's like, you have to save the boy. So they're there to find Andy. Andy's obviously gone. The detective is questioning all the staff, but Karen questions a little girl
sitting in the hallway.
She says that Chucky was here. And guess what? Now they know what's going on. So now they run back to...
Karen says Andy would go home. He knows to always go home. And so they go back to the apartment. Andy
is in fact there.
He's gone there by himself first, and he starts barricading the front door full of all the furniture his 6-year-old body can put in front of it. And it is a tough, painful scene, and it's really good. It's a long shot. Like, it's a long take.
Yeah, the kid, he does the whole scene in one long take, and then goes and hides in his closet and arms himself with a baseball bat, and he's like sits and waits for help to come.
Yeah.
And then Chucky manages to get in through the chimney.
And he kicks out the fire grate.
Yeah.
Very dramatic.
Yeah, and that's one of the shots that was a little person dressed up as Chucky, but like you can't tell.
No, you can't.
Mean, yeah, if you really look, you can tell which scenes are what, but like it looks really good. It's not like blatant, you know?
No, it's seamless.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that there were little people helping out, you wouldn't know. You would just think it was a puppet.
Yeah.
So Karen and the detective get back to the apartment.
Just in time.
Time.
Like, Andy fights him off for a bit, but Chucky's a grown man serial killer, and he outwits him and knocks him unconscious, and he starts to do the spell, and then Karen and the detective show up just in time, and they stop him. And the detective gets stabbed in the leg.
So really badly.
Really bad, yeah. He gets, like, stabbed in the ankle. Like, I don't think it severs the Achilles tendon or anything, because he's still on it a little bit.
He can't walk very well.
He can't do the chase. And he also gets hit in the head with a baseball bat, too. So now it's Karen and Andy.
Versus Chucky.
Chucky is chasing them, and they're trying to, like, barricade themselves in various rooms, but it's just the two of them, and the scene where she's holding the door shut, and he's, like, stabbing through the door, because the door doesn't have a lock on it, and she can't lock him out. And he's stabbing through the door and getting closer to her face. And then he goes around the other side and gets in the other door, and then they have to run. It's awesome. And then Karen gets the detective's his spare sidearm.
Yes.
And
Nope.
She loses the gun.
The gun won't fire. The gun jams.
Oh, yeah.
The gun jams.
She shoots at him a couple times. She hits him once, though.
She hits him once,
but then the gun jams, and he's like, what's the matter? Gun jam? Sorry, I just love that moment.
Yeah. She runs to the living room, traps him in the fireplace.
Mm-hmm. And then she's got to hold the thing shut because the fireplace grate, which we've planted earlier several times in the movie, she's trying to hold the thing shut, and she's trying to reach the matches, and she can't reach them. And then Andy runs over, and he gets the matches, and he lights it, and she starts the gas, and then
Chucky goes, says, Andy, we're friends.
We're friends to the end, remember? And then Andy says,
this is the end, friend. And it's one of the best one-liners I've ever heard in a movie. Yeah. It's so satisfying. And he throws the match in.
It's a Sarah Connor moment.
For sure. And Chucky lights up and screams. And actually, he doesn't die at that point.
But he does burn for a long time, and it clearly hurts a lot. And you're like, yeah, fucking burn.
I hate you, Chucky, you serial killer who also endangered adorable Andy and his nice family.
So he burns up, and he, like, lays there on the carpet, and they're like, okay, he's dead. So they go to get the detective, and then she's like, Andy, go get the first aid kit from under the sink. And Andy runs out to get it, and he sees Chucky's gone. He's like, Mommy. And then Chucky is there. And he's like, he trips Andy, and he's like stalking after him down the hallway, and he's all burned up. And
it's one of the best shots in the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it's one of the scenes where they combine the use of animatronics and a little person. Because they start off, they have the foot come out, and it's the animatronic, and they have like him standing there, it's the animatronic. Then he's like walking towards him with the knife all slow, and it's in full view, and he's just like there.
And the super low angle distorts the size difference. Yeah. It's from the POV of Andy like crawling backwards on the floor.
Yep. And he's towering over him.
Yeah.
At that point.
It's so scary.
Yeah. This is where the scene, like, clearly they saw and liked Terminator, because they structured the whole like final showdown scene very much similar to the ending of Terminator,
Yeah.
because it's like I don't know, it's just like this relentless. He is like an animatronic thing, and he keeps getting steadily more burned up and broken, and like it reveals the horror beneath. It's just trust me, watch the movie. It's there. You'll notice the similarities to Terminator if you look for them.
And so Chucky's getting slowed down, but he's still not stopping.
Yeah.
The detective's partner shows up.
Well, they shoot Chucky a bunch of times.
He's decapitated.
Karen shoots off his arm, his leg, blows off his head.
The partner shows up, comes in, and he's like, oh shit, are you guys okay? And Detective Humperdinck is like, the doll's alive. Don't touch it. I know you don't believe me, but also don't touch it. And the detective with the mustache,
he calls for reinforcements first, and then he goes out to look around at the scene, and he finds the head.
And he picks it up, and it doesn't bite him. He brings it into the bedroom. Everyone's like, no, we told you not to.
Yeah.
And
he's like, look, there's no way this doll's alive. And then the body comes popping out of the air conditioning vent behind him and starts choking him. And then the detective manages to throw the thing off of him.
Throw Chucky's body off of him.
And then Karen gets the gun and
shoots him in the heart.
Yeah.
And then
nails him.
It's over. And they're like, what are we going to tell everyone?
Yeah. Oh, the detective looks at his partner and goes, now do you believe me? He goes, yeah. Who's going to believe me? And then they get Mike. That's his name. Detective. Mike. The detective's name's Mike. They get Mike on the stretcher, and she's like, come on, Andy, we're going to go to the hospital with Mike. And then they go to leave, and he throws one last look at the body, and then that's it.
That's it.
Movie's over.
That's the movie, and I love it, and it's so good. Every part of it is so necessary and well crafted and well acted. It's edited at a perfect precision pace.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a moment where you're thinking about what's not happening on screen.
Yep. There's always something happening, and the performances carry the movie the whole way through. The animatronics are spot on. All the other effects are spot on. It's one of those rare, nearly perfect movies, and people don't give it enough credit for that. People, like, I don't know, like, they really do mock these movies, and I'm like, why are you guys such cynical assholes? Like, this, not for nothing, like, even if you don't like Chucky or the Child's Play movies in general, because there's some bad ones, but, like, if you don't like these movies in general, you, objectively speaking, they are very well-made movies, some of them. Like,
well, at least the first one.
The first three are well-made movies, even if you don't like the plot or execution of any of the other ones. The first three movies are quality movies. The special effects are fantastic. It doesn't look dated at all. Like,
I know it's sacrilege, but I don't love the first Halloween movie.
That's sacrilege.
But I understand it's a good movie. I don't have any bad things to say about it. I just say, like, that's not for me exactly. It's not my taste.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what people say about Child's Play. People erroneously say that the special effects are
It looks fake. Chucky's a stupid character. Just kick him. Like, no one's in a position to do that until they are. And then what do? They just kick him.
Yeah.
And he still finds a way.
It's like they forget that the child is the primary target.
Yeah, and that's why it's scary, is because he's trying to essentially murder a kid, because I know he's trying to transfer his soul into the kid's body, but, like, what do you think's going to happen to Andy if that happens?
Right. And also, even if he didn't do that, he's probably going to kill him anyway.
Right. He proves that in the second one, too, because he misses his chance. Remember?
Yeah.
He completes the ritual, and then he can't do it. And then he catches up to Andy later. He's like, you know what I'm going to do to you, Andy? I'm going to cut off your legs, too! Like, he's just going to kill him out of spite.
Yes, because he's a murderer.
Yeah.
Brad Dourif does such a great job.
Oh my god, he sells it!
He's so good. I love him in just about everything. And I don't know who has or has not seen Graveyard Shift. I don't recommend the film Graveyard Shift.
You should.
Well...
That's another perfect movie. That's a joke.
It's a real mediocre film.
It's a camp fest. Like, everyone's chewing the scenery, including the rats.
I love hammy acting.
Yeah.
It hardly ever bothers me.
We'll do an episode on that movie.
Okay, but let me just say that Brad Dourif delivers a monologue in Graveyard Shift that just blows you away.
Yeah.
It's real, and he's
it's a real
great
Quint
actor.
moment.
Yeah, it is. And the first place I ever saw Brad Dourif, he really made an impression on me. The first place I saw him was in The X-Files.
Oh, yeah. Who was he?
He was a killer in an episode Beyond the Sea, and he could talk to ghosts, and he was telling Scully, whose father had just passed away, and he was singing Somewhere Beyond the Sea to her, which is her and her dad's song together.
Yeah.
And it was real good.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the episode. I think it's season 2 or 3. If you've seen The X-Files, like, it's one of the best episodes. You know it.
Yeah. He's one of the reasons I have never seen The Exorcist 3. I really want to see that because he's in that, and he plays the guy that's possessed by the demon throughout most of the movie. And I really want to see it just because of his performance. Obviously, I want to see it because of Walter C. Scott. Is that his name?
George C. Scott.
George C. Scott. Obviously, I want to still see it because of George C. Scott, and his performance is probably great in it. But I really like Brad Dourif, and I'd like to see that movie.
I didn't know he was in that. I'd like to watch that.
Oh yeah, he's the one who's being interviewed. He's the one who's the accused serial killer.
I think he's got a lot of range too, and in Child's Play, he does a lot.
He does a lot of heavy lifting for the movie. Yeah, his performance, like, if they didn't have a good voice actor playing Chucky, it just, like, you would not care. Like, special effects would still be fantastic, and the other performances would still be fantastic, but, like, Chucky needs to be a fully formed character in order to work, and he really drives that home.
I think one thing that's pretty unique about Chucky is that his voice is not like a deep, rumbly, menacing, threatening voice like a lot of non-corporeal evil things are.
Well, like Candyman, for instance. Candyman's got that... He's got, like, that deep bass voice. And
yeah.
Yeah. Nope, Chucky is kind of high-pitched, and...
Also, he does the doll voice a bunch.
Yeah. It's just a different type of slasher.
Yeah, Chucky's fantastic. I like most of the Chucky movies, and Child's Play is an incredible movie.
Yeah.
And I know we said absolutely every single thing that happens in the movie in this episode, but
sometimes you just have to, man.
I regret nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's all worth watching. I feel like this enthusiastic discussion is motivating to get people to watch it. People, I'm sure,
it's deserved too. Like, I can't say that enough. Like, it deserves the feverish devotion that we give it, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. As a devotee, I spend a lot of time in the horror community online and at conventions. And
there is a lot of love for Chucky. I'm not going to make the claim that there isn't, but I feel like a lot of people love Chucky ironically or for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of fans out there who absolutely do appreciate these movies.
Chucky, well, I think Chucky the character / happy maniac, the people who like him in the horror community really like slashers, and he is celebrated as being a crazy maniac. Yeah. And I think that everyone else ignores the
quality filmmaking that went on in these movies.
Yeah.
Chucky and Freddy Krueger have a very similar kind of fan base to them, where they're regarded as like the rock stars of the slashers.
Yeah. Chucky's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad Kara made a Chucky costume.
Yeah, that was funny.
Kara, who comes on the show, has a great Chucky costume.
Yeah, post that on your blog too.
I'll post a picture. Link in the show notes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I have to say about Child's Play.
There are no complaints.
No complaints. Everyone should watch it. If you don't remember who Catherine Hicks is, she's the mom from Seventh Heaven. Mm-hmm. That's who she is.
If you don't remember who Prince Humperdinck is, then you've never seen The Princess Bride. Brad Dourif is a B-movie king, and...
he was in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, he's still a B-movie king. Just because you're in some A-movies doesn't mean anything.
So thanks for talking about Child's Play with me, and I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah, Andy's back. Kyle from the second movie's back.
I don't like the second movie, but I like Kyle.
Well...
thanks for listening, if you made it this far. I hope you enjoyed the conversation about Child's Play. I hope you're really afraid of dolls now. Any one of them could be a host for the spirit of a serial killer, so watch out. As always, make sure you subscribe on whatever service you're listening on, and I hope you have a great week. I'll talk to you soon.